everyone, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be discussing a television show. I haven't really dived into TV series or original television shows recently or as often because it takes a lot of time and sort of devotion into getting into a series and catching up with everything that's sort of happened within the series. But luckily, I've been able to, for the past couple of months, get kind of caught up and familiar with at least some shows. And I'll kind of try at least to address some of these shows. And unfortunately, though, too, television has kind of fallen a little bit by the wayside, at least from the cable side is concerned. Things are definitely moving a lot more online to Netflix and Amazon original series. People aren't really devoted too much to cable, I think, anymore. At least the younger generation isn't devoted to it as much. Because there's a lot of qualms with cable that I think make it not maybe worthy of people's time. And I can definitely see why that is. However, this television show in particular is a television show. So it is a big exception. And this television show is from Fox, and it is titled Gotham. And yes, this Gotham is referring to Batman. Yes, the story of Batman takes place within the city of Gotham, in case people are unfamiliar with Batman or how the lore of Batman works. But basically, what this particular series devotes itself to is talking about what happened within Gotham before Batman became Batman. So within the series, Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, is like in his teens. So he hasn't become Batman yet and put on the suit and put all the gadgets together and goes to fight crime. Hasn't done that yet. At least the series hasn't indicated that he's done that yet. So instead of doing, again, sort of a Batman story, it tries to focus on the city itself and focus in particular on Jim Gordon. Now, in case people don't know, Jim Gordon is a police officer. Eventually, he plays a more prominent role within the Batman universe when Batman becomes Batman. And in this series, he's really essentially the main character, and he's the one who goes through all of the trials and tribulations as far as dealing with crime and dealing with all of these insane people that end up coming his way. Because Gotham is full of crazy nut jobs, even within the start of the series. And it just kind of, I guess, progressively gets worse. So what makes this series so, I think, well put together is that it ties things together, at least from episode to episode and from season to season, sort of in an interesting way, because you see characters that maybe were kind of cut out of the first season and now they end up coming back, or something happens to where it tries to tie everything together. So even though there's original kind of stories going on within each sort of episode, or at least some of the episodes, they try to make it so that everything kind of coincides at least more or less together. So there's kind of a flowing bigger narrative, but at the same time there's various little narratives within it. So not only do we see Jim Gordon focused on his trying to solve crimes, but we end up seeing the relationships he develops romantically and also with his coworkers. In particular, there's like kind of a buddy cop relationship that he ends up having with his partner, and with the chief police officer, and you'll sort of see how that ends up falling kind of by the wayside because eventually even he becomes a little bit insane. And that's what I think is so great about this show is that you sort of see how even good people can be driven to kind of like insanity, and how these circumstances that are within Gotham make it so difficult for people to kind of, stay even sane because it's just so ridiculous, the level of crime and corruption that goes on there. So we have the Jim Gordon angle, but again, they don't completely ignore Batman or Bruce Wayne. So they kind of talk about what Bruce is going through, and they sort of address the various relationships he ends up kind of developing. So you'll see him have a relationship with Selina, aka Catwoman, um, who ends up sort of kind of uh, being sort of a frenemy of his, but still kind of a friend, maybe somewhat girlfriend. It's kind of a interesting and complicated relationship, and I think that's why again the Batman universe is so interesting. Um, and you'll see it also how he develops a relationship with his butler in particular, who is also a pretty awesome character. Um, but yeah, you really get to see a sense of all these different protagonists and how they play a role, and how they're trying to keep everything sane, but it's so difficult to do so because the crime and the corruption is it just runs so deep within the city. Um, and not only does it show great protagonists, but we also got some amazing villains. I mean, these actors that they got to play these roles are really, really good. We have all of the main villains pretty much of Batman, as far as from what I can tell. We've got the Riddler, we've got Penguin, we've got the Joker, Mad Hatter is in there as well. I think they're gonna eventually have Bane, and it's really not clear who exactly Bane is even yet. They do have Mr. Freeze, so they've got all of these people within this particular show. At least they try to make all of these villains kind of developed and interesting, and you just see how insane they are and how driven to insanity they are based upon the various circumstances that they're in and based on the kinds of characters that they are. And I think they do justice to the villains as far as actually devoting time to them and getting to know them and getting to see like how they see themselves in with the in crowd and how they try to, basically corrupt things. One point you'll see how Penguin tries to run for mayor and he eventually succeeds in running for mayor, um, even though he's known to be an insane killer. So you sort of see how crazed the city is and how messed up it is. And I think this really kind of highlights some interesting things that are kind of, going on within even our society, maybe not to this level of extremity, but you sort of see the crazy amounts of corruption and, lying and insanity that just encapsulates kind of our role too, and it kind of transcends itself, and there's sort of some truth into what the show is trying to say to people. What's also interesting about the show is it also dives a little bit into kind of a conspiracy Illuminati territory, which again, if you are a conspiracy theorist, you will probably enjoy this show because it really tries to paint how certain people within Gotham kind of have a secret organization, and they're supposed to be really the ones that are in charge of Gotham, even though they're people don't know really about this secret society and whatnot. And so there's a lot of interesting layers to it, and I think this is what makes it so well thought out and well put together. I think though that's really all I can say though about the show without really giving too much away. I think it is definitely worthy of your time if you enjoy Batman, if you enjoy this world of Gotham, if you really like the psychological angle. This is also definitely an interesting one to explore and dive into. And considering the fact that the DC movies have been kind of lackluster, again, I don't think those movies were as terrible as people made them out to be, but at the same time, it's nice to see a television show really devoting its energy into trying to do something original and do something interesting. And I think the show, at least what it's trying to do, is really interesting. And, it is something that I think, in particular, the fans, even of the comic books and of Batman, could enjoy. And I think, though, that's really all I can say as far as the television show is concerned. It may be a little bit difficult to follow if you don't really know anything about Batman or anything about this kind of universe. But I think as far as the way the show progresses, you can end up sort of getting it within maybe the first season or so. So again, it helps to have a background because then, ooh, you see this character and it's like, oh, I know this character. But if you haven't seen the character before, then it's like, okay, who's this person supposed to be? I don't know. So it might throw some people off who, again, are not familiar with Batman, but it's definitely still interesting to, I think, look into, even if you haven't explored Batman all too much. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care.